In the winter of 1939, a baby's cry echoed through a cramped apartment in Brooklyn. The child's mother, exhausted and uncertain, wondered what future awaited her infant in a world teetering on the edge of war. She couldn't have known this baby, born into poverty, raised in anonymity, would one day transform an entire industry, not through acting, directing, or producing, but through something far more unexpected. This is the story of how an unknown infant shaped the golden age of cinema and changed the way millions of people experience movies forever. This is Hollywood Stories. It was February 14th, 1939, Valentine's Day. But there were no roses, no chocolates, no romantic dinners in the cramped tenement on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. Sarah Weiskopf, a seamstress, 23 years old, lay in bed recovering from childbirth. Her husband, Jacob, worked 16-hour days at a textile factory, earning barely enough to keep a roof over their heads. The baby, a boy, was small, sickly. The doctor who delivered him in their fourth-floor walk-up shook his head with concern. "Mrs. Weiskopf," he said, "this child will need constant care. He's underweight. His lungs are weak." Sarah pulled her son close and whispered to him in Yiddish, making promises that seemed impossible to keep. She would give him everything. He would have opportunities she never had. He would be safe. Across the river in Manhattan, the movie Palaces of Times Square blazed with light. Gone with the Wind was about to premiere. The Wizard of Oz was in production. Hollywood's golden age was reaching its zenith. But for the Weiskopf family, movies were an unaffordable luxury. 15 cents they needed for bread, for milk, for coal, to heat their apartment. Jacob Weiskopf had come to America in 1935, fleeing the darkening skies over Poland. He'd seen what was coming. His family, parents, sisters, cousins had refused to leave. "It will pass," they said. By 1939, letters from home had stopped coming. Jacob threw himself into work, into survival, into building something for his infant son. He took a second job, then a third. Sarah sewed garments at home, her fingers moving in lamplight while the baby slept beside her. The boy, they named him David, grew slowly but steadily. By age 5, he discovered the one escape his family could afford, the public library. Mrs. Henderson, the librarian on Nostrand Avenue, noticed a small boy who came every Saturday, who read everything, who asked questions that surprised her. "What do you want to be when you grow up, David?" she asked one afternoon. "I want to make things that last," he said. He was 7 years old. What kind of things, she wondered. Buildings, books? He couldn't say. He only knew that everything around him seemed temporary, fragile. His parents worked desperately to hold their world together. His mother's hands were worn and scarred from sewing. His father's back bent a little more each year. David wanted to create something permanent. In 1950, when David was 11, his father had a heart attack on the factory floor. He survived barely, but couldn't work anymore. The family's already precarious finances collapsed. They lost their apartment. For 6 months, they lived with another immigrant family in quarters so cramped that David slept in the hallway. Sarah took on more sewing. David sold newspapers before school, and Jacob, bedridden, felt the weight of promises he couldn't keep. "I failed you," he told his son one day. "No, Papa," David said. "You saved us. You brought us here." But David learned something important during those desperate months. Fragility wasn't just personal. Systems could fail. Institutions could crumble. Even physical objects deteriorated, became brittle, turned to dust. He became obsessed with preservation, with permanence. At Brooklyn Technical High School, David excelled in chemistry and engineering. His teachers noticed his particular interest in material science, how substances broke down, how they could be protected, how they might be made to endure. "You could work for DuPont," his counselor said. "Kodak. Good companies, secure jobs." But David had developed another interest. Film. Not movies as entertainment. He'd barely seen any. but film as a physical object, as a medium, as a carrier of information that seemed to disappear even as he tried to save it. He'd read that the early films, the ones from the 1890s, from the early 1900s, were decomposing. Nitrate film was unstable, dangerous even. It could spontaneously combust. Museums and archives were losing history faster than they could preserve it. Hollywood's golden age was being erased. David received a scholarship to MIT. He studied chemical engineering with a focus on polymer chemistry. His professors found him brilliant but peculiar. While other students pursued careers in plastics or pharmaceuticals, David fixated on film preservation. "There's no money in it," his advisor warned. "That's not why I'm doing it," David replied. In 1960, he graduated, and against all advice took a low-paying position at the Library of Congress. His job? To help save America's film heritage. Thousands of movies were decomposing in vaults. Irreplaceable works were turning to powder. The problem was the film base itself. Cellulose nitrate, used until 1951, was chemically unstable. Cellulose acetate, which replaced it, wasn't much better. It decomposed through a process called vinegar syndrome, releasing acetic acid and destroying itself from within. David worked in basement laboratories experimenting with stabilization techniques. He worked nights and weekends. He published papers that almost nobody read. Other scientists pursued prestige and profit. David pursued permanence. Then in 1965, he made a breakthrough by modifying the chemical structure of polyester film base and developing a new preservation treatment. He created a method that could extend the life of motion picture film from decades to centuries. His techniques could save not only new films, but restore and stabilize old ones. Hollywood barely noticed. But a few people, archivists, film historians, preservationists, understood the magnitude of what David Weiskopf had accomplished. Slowly, his methods were adopted by major studios, by archives, by libraries around the world. Gone with the Wind was saved. Casablanca was saved. Citizen Kane, The Maltese Falcon, It's a Wonderful Life. Films that would have deteriorated beyond recovery were preserved because of David's work. He never became famous. He never wanted to. He spent 40 years working in archives and laboratories, publishing technical papers, training others in preservation techniques. When he retired in 2000, there was no fanfare and no headlines, but because of him, because of the sickly baby born in Brooklyn on Valentine's Day in 1939, hundreds of thousands of films survived. Entire cinematic traditions, American, European, Asian, were saved from chemical oblivion. Every classic film you've ever watched, every Hitchcock thriller, every John Wayne Western, every Hollywood musical, every frame of film noir ever shot from the golden age of cinema, they exist today, viewable, restorable, shareable with future generations because one man decided that performance mattered more than profit. David Weiskopf died in 2018 at age 79. The obituaries were brief. The New York Times mentioned his contributions to film preservation in 3 short paragraphs. Most people scrolling past the notice had no idea who he was or what he'd done. But go to any movie theater today, watch any classic film on streaming services, visit the Library of Congress, the Academy Film Archive, the British Film Institute. The movies are there. The images move. The stories survive. A seamstress promise kept across generations. A boy who wanted to make things that last, who did. And that's why the next time you watch Humphrey Bogart tell Ingrid Bergman, "He's looking at you, kid," or Dorothy click her ruby slippers together, or hear Marlon Brando mumble about making someone an offer they can't refuse, you might think of a sickly baby born in Brooklyn during a snowstorm, whose mother whispered impossible promises in Yiddish, the baby who saved Hollywood by making sure Hollywood could be saved. David Weiskopf, film preservationist, American hero, unknown infant who shaped the golden age of cinema and every age that followed. This is Hollywood Stories.
Special thank you to Hollywood Shop for making this episode possible.
Check out Hollyweird.shop. They've got the perfect items for the true movie fan. Dare to be different and unleash your weird. Hollyweird.shop unveils new designs every week and is now offering great shipping deals. Stand out, creep out, and wear your weird. Shop now at Hollyweird.shop.